If you know union on the level of your Vishuddhi, this is what happens, tremendous sense of power, because this union is a different kind. If the union is on the level of Agna, then this brings absolute awareness and knowing. Now, once someone has attained union on the level of Agna, suddenly the intellectual types look stupid in front of him. But suddenly he would go into a temple and weep and dance like a madman. People would be shocked. We thought you were a man of reason. What are you crying? Like this. Like those buffoons who call themselves devotees, like them you're crying? We thought you were a man of true intellect. Life is so enormous that it has no meaning. If there was a meaning, the moment you found the meaning, it would be over. But you can't finish off life like that. You write 1,000,000 books about it, still it is ever expanding. So there is no meaning to life. Meaning, very rudimentary minds in the world are always trying to explain life off as this or that. You can't explain it off because it contains you, it is you. Everything that you discover is just a small aspect of it. Whatever meanings you give it to, whatever definitions you give it to, are just your notions about it. Life is far beyond meaning. Life is beyond meaning. And that's why it's so beautiful. We are all unique, each one of us different. And it's so wonderful that we're different. We may spring from the same oneness of our interiority, but as human beings, as individuals, every one of us is unique. We are different, that's what is beautiful about us. And the oneness is not yet in our experience, at least not yet in the common human experience. So at least let's enjoy the difference. If you learn to enjoy the difference, if you see that every human being is a unique human being, only once in the whole eternity, only once this kind of human being happens. You cannot find exactly this kind of human being anywhere else in the existence, at any time in eternity, only once. That is true with yourself, with your friend, with your enemy, with your loved ones and the ones you hate. All of them are absolutely unique. Anything that you see as unique, you value it, isn't it? Anything that you value, you will have no problems with it. And oneness will happen out of that. If you begin to enjoy the uniqueness of life, oneness will happen out of that. The fear is simply because you are not living with life, you are living in your mind. Your fear is always about what's going to happen next. That means your fear is always about that which does not exist. If your fear is about the non-existent, your fear is 100% imaginary. If you're suffering the non-existential, we call that insanity. So, people may be in just socially accepted levels of insanity, but if you're afraid or if you're suffering anything which does not exist, it amounts to insanity, isn't it? People are always suffering, either what happened yesterday or what may happen tomorrow. So your suffering is always about that which does not exist, simply because you're not rooted in reality. You're always rooted in your mind. Mind is… one part of it is memory, another part of it is imagination. Both of them are in one way imagination, because both of them don't exist right now. You're lost in your imagination, that's the basis of your fear. If you were rooted in reality, there would be no fear. Why is there poverty and suffering in the world? See, one thing is poverty, the way we describe poverty right now, is very, dependent upon certain standards that we have set ourselves. Who is poor, who is rich is decided by certain standards that certain societies have set. 10,000 years ago, living in a cave was a luxury. If you had a good cave for yourself and something to cover yourself, it was a great life. Today, we have created so many things for our well-being, so anybody who cannot afford to have that, we consider that poverty. So what's poverty in one society need not be poverty in another society. So this trying to have a world view of common sense of poverty, saying that if you earn anything less than $10 per hour, you're poor, I think is an improper way of looking at the world. I know in South India, if a man earns $2 per day, not per hour, he can live well. He can live reasonably okay. The kind of prosperity that we are talking about, our standards of prosperity, are completely unrealistic and ecologically unsustainable. So this idea of poverty and prosperity needs to go through a lot of change. I come from a culture where people have chosen many times, not now, many times to be consciously poor, by choice. This is a culture where kings have chosen to walk as beggars. So, poverty is not necessarily in terms of whether you have a car to drive or not, whether you have a big house to live or not. That's not so. Definitely the world is poor because in spite of all this wealth, in spite of all this comfort and conveniences that science has heaped upon us, still people are living joyless, still people are living not knowing how to live. We know how to go to the Mars, but we still don't know how to live on this planet. That's definitely poverty.
If you can be here, being aware of life and death at the same time, because both are here at the same time. They are not two separate things. That's all it is. That fragile, at the same time so sturdy. These are one inside the other. Life is all packed like this. Creation and the creator, life and death, everything packed one inside the other. It takes attention. It takes a lot of attention if one has to see what it is. Otherwise, one just lives on the surface, half alive. If you do not know life and death at the same time, you know only one half of life. Being half alive is torture, always. So when we say Shiva, we are uttering this so that this dimension of life and death being together at the same time happens to you. That the polarities are gone. There is no life and death. There is just this. For this, there is no name yet, because if you give it a name, somebody will invent the opposite. It's just this, but there is that. There is no that, there is just this. There is no this and that, there is just this and this. There is no yes and no, there is just yes and yes. If you want to… See, every aspect of life has this. If you want to fall in love, if you are in love, love does not need polarities. Love does not need an opposite. Because for most people, love starts in their heart and sinks into their genital, an opposite is needed. For sexuality, you need the opposite. For love, you don't need the opposite. What you thought is you and something has become just this, for example, on many levels. Starting in the yogic terminology, if you want to look at it, starting from the Mooladhara, where it is about food and sleep. There is that and this. If you eat it, everything becomes this. Now, you are mentally alert, you are looking at things, there is you and the other. If you fall asleep, there is just this. There is no this and that. So this is on all levels. If it happens in the lowest chakra, low is not the word. When I say low, we're not talking high and low, we're talking geographically, Southern chakra. When it happens at the Mooladhara, it happens as food and sleep, but the same unity. If it happens at Swadhisthana, it happens as sexuality, but the same unity. If it happens at Manipuraka, it finds expression as ambition, greed, conquest, but the same thing. If it happens at Anahata, it happens as love, but the same thing. But now, from Mooladhara to Anahata, you have natural access. You're naturally capable of these things. Even a child is capable of this, even a dog is capable of this. He can ingest, digest and assimilate. He has his sexuality. We have already looked at this, dogs are loving for sure. We don't know about God, we are not so sure about the human beings. But dogs, we are dead certain. Yes? Yes or no? There is no question about dog's love. God's love, we don't know. Man's love, woman's love, we're not sure. Sometimes it looks real, sometimes we don't know. Dog's love, dead certain we are. So, from Mooladhara to Anahata, it's open to every creature, actually. This comes naturally, this is a gift from nature. But if you want to go beyond this, if you want to know the union that the Vishuddhi brings about, the union that the Agna brings about, the highest possible union that can happen at Sahasrara, this will not happen unless you strive for it. If you want to live here as just another creature on this planet, nothing wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong. When I say a cow, a dog, an elephant, a snake, I am not speaking in any derogatory term. I know, it's a very derogatory thing to say you're a dog. I don't know why. They are more steady, more people trust dogs than human beings. and the numbers are increasing by the day. But still, a dog is a derogatory term for some reason. So I'm not speaking of these creatures as in any derogatory sense, but limited for sure, isn't it? The possibilities of life are limited in these forms. We are just talking about boundaries, because the basic concern of a human being is to go beyond his boundaries, always. So if you want to go beyond these four levels of union that one can know, then it needs a little more awareness, a little more devotion, a little more push. If your energies rise, if you become aware, or if you experience the union in your Vishuddhi, you will become stupidly devotional. I'm saying stupidly devotional not because devotion is stupid, but generally devotees are perceived as idiots by the well-educated world because they don't stand to their reason. Anything that does not agree with your way of reasoning seems stupid to you. But it doesn't matter how stupid you think they are, they're experiencing a lot more pleasantness than you do. Maybe they're not so stupid at all. It is just that they have moved their life from simple 1 + 1 = 2 to a different kind of arithmetic within themselves, where there is no plus or minus, it's just 1, always 1. You must understand, without 1, there is no number system. Just always 1. If you know union on the level of your Vishuddhi, this is what happens, tremendous sense of power, because this union is a different kind. If the union is on the level of Agna, then this brings absolute awareness and knowing. Now, once someone has attained union on the level of Agna, suddenly the intellectual types look stupid in front of him. You've heard of Adi-Shankara. This is the most argumentative Indian ever. He went about walking across the land looking for arguments, such unbeatable logic. People were defeated and defeated and defeated in hordes. All kinds of people came to argue with him. Whoever argued with him, they're bound to lose, because there is nobody else with that kind of logic, because a certain union that you have experienced in the Agna gives you a completely different kind of logic. If your energies, if you find union at your Sahasrara, you're ecstatic beyond anything that you know. Shankara used to be like this, he was so argumentative and defeating people all the time in his arguments, every day picking up arguments with all kinds of people. But suddenly he would go into a temple and weep and dance like a madman. People would be shocked. We thought you were a man of reason. What are you crying? Like this. Like those buffoons who call themselves devotees, like them you're crying? We thought you were a man of true intellect. he would say, that's for the world, my logic is for the world, this is for me. So this is a simple step one needs to take. In your awareness, if life and death are at the same time, if they are not two separate things, then you have set the fundamentals for the highest union possible. You got the right foundation. You want to live, you don't want to die, you are on a very wrong foundation. You're on an extremely wrong foundation. The more you build on this wrong foundation, the more you're asking for a disaster. Suppose we made a mistake with the foundation, the best is to build a minimum possible building, isn't it? Suppose we've done a mistake with the foundation work, even in a construction site, the best thing is to build a minimum possible building. The more you build, the more you're putting yourself to risk. That is why they talked so much about renunciation. Because they said, you got a wrong foundation, don't build too much. The more you build further away from truth you will go, keep it minimum. Because the foundation is wrong, till you fix that, don't build too much.